100 books. Will I be able to read that many books this year?
Well, hello there. It's Mrs. Makeda, and welcome to my new podcast. I'm so excited to bring you Sip, Knit, and Page Flip, the cozy podcast where literature meets fiber arts. Throughout these episodes, I'll share my passion for reading in a cozy space designed for book lovers, knitters, and fiber artists alike. During each episode, we'll talk about your favorite or not so favorite books while sipping on a cup of tea, wine, or coffee. We'll get into the projects that are on our needles, on our radar, and even the ones that are hibernating. Basically, we'll be talking about the ones that we frogged. And if this sounds like something that you can get into, I want to invite you to subscribe so you don't miss out on the delightful conversations about the latest literary gems, classic reads, and everything in between, all while sharing tips, tricks for knitting and other fiber arts. Be sure to click the subscribe button and join us for each episode of the Sip, Knit, and Page Flip podcast.
Today, we're going to be jumping into my bookish goal for the year, and I'm going to be sharing some information with you about what I plan on doing and the direction that I'm going in. But I do want to say I'm a little bit nervous about my goal. I posted earlier a clip of me kind of sharing that, it's that time of year. I'm going through making my bookish goals, and I've set the goal of 100 books. But when I started going through this pile of books and more and removing them off of my shelves, I started seeing, okay, this is what 100 books really looks like. And I started feeling really intimidated. And so now I am sitting here and I'm putting my books into my reading list, and I am going to be writing them down. And as I'm doing that, I'm asking myself, will I be able to read 100 books this year? The thing is, it's a goal. It's a big goal. It's a goal that I want to be able to hit, but I am a hobbyist. I'm not just a book lover. I knit, I crochet, I spin, I weave, I sew, I quilt, and I read. And I have a family and all the other things. And so what I don't want to do throughout the year is I don't want to be so consumed with hitting the number of books that I have to read that I don't actually enjoy reading the books that I'm choosing to read. This year, I am focusing in on building community, because I think that while reading is such an individual experience that we have all by our lonesome, all by ourselves, it is something that we turn into a communal experience when we share our thoughts and our experiences on the book. And what happens with that is it transforms the entire experience, because we're not only able to share what we thought and what we felt, but we're able to take in the thoughts and the feelings of others and learn what their experience was like as well. So with that in mind, I'm thinking about the books that have already been added to my TBR. And yes, my TBR, because if you know, I have a TBR and an MBR, and I'll go through that in a minute. But with the books that have been added to my TBR because of the book clubs that I'm participating in, I'm also thinking about what do I want to add to my book club and what do I want to read for myself. So I don't necessarily want to feel like I have to rush through all of the books that I'm going to be reading, because not only do I want to read them, but I want to experience them. I really enjoy my books. I enjoy spending time in my books. Like, I love a big book. And the reason why is because I like to be able to spend time with the characters and enjoy the story and really relish in the experience, as long as it's a good one, right? As long as the author has done a great job with the book, then I'm good. That being said, I don't mind a slim read either, as long as it's good. This is a thing that I've been contemplating while I've been sitting here selecting my books. And I'm looking and I'm saying, well, I also don't want to just create this goal for myself that is, so astronomical that at the end I feel like I wasn't able to hit my goal. But at this place and space and time that I'm in, I don't necessarily just want to make a goal to say, hey, I don't even think I'm going to hit it. The purpose of making the goal is to expand my reading experience and to stay kind of focused on my journey. Really, that's what it's about. I normally have an MBR. And so an MBR is a might be read list. It's a list of books that I add to a list because I'm thinking about reading them. Some people have a list of possibles and then they put them on the TBR, but I don't normally keep a TBR because I'm a mood reader and I just kind of go with the flow. But this year, what I'm doing is I am collecting the books and adding them to my MBR. But then for books that I definitely want to read this year, they're moving over to my TBR. And some of those books are kind of thick. For instance, one of the books that I'm currently reading is Swan's Way by Proust. I believe is his last name. I don't think it's Proust. It's Proust is how you pronounce it. And it is a 7-volume series. I'm reading a few classical books with a few of the book clubs that I'm in. And then there are other books that I'm reading with the other book clubs that I'm in. And then there are the books that I want to read. And again, I want my time to be full of enjoyable reading, reading that takes me through a great experience, but I'm also not just a fiction reader. I read a lot of nonfiction. I read business books. I read biographies and autobiographies. I read self help books. I also read spiritual books. And I read things that will help me grow in my relationships. I try to be a very well rounded reader because I want to be a healthy person that experiences things on different levels. And I believe that one way to do that is through my reading experience. So some of the books that are here are thicker than others. And the other thing that I did find was there are a lot of books that I start and I just don't finish. And in the past, there have been books that I did not finish. I was reading them for a time, and then I would not feel like it was something that I wanted to continue to read. And so I put it down. And then years later, I would go back to the book and I would find it was easier for me to read because I was just in a different place. One of those books was A Mercy by Toni Morrison. I remember when I first started reading the book, and I think I posted this book review on my channel, but I remember when I first started reading the book, it was probably 2017. And as I was reading the book, I kept saying, I don't know how I feel about this. I don't want to keep reading it. And I was just going through some things and I was like, this is not what I'm feeling right now. So I closed the book and I put it down. I didn't get rid of the book, but I went back to it years later. So I think it was like 2020 or 2022, something like that. I went back and I read the book and I had a better experience. I was able to finish it. And so now there are certain books on my shelves that I have not read that I kind of want to return to. And I'm going to tell you one of those books is not sitting here. I literally cannot think of the name of this book right now. But the reason why I'm bringing it up is because it's a book I want to read. Like, I want to get through this book. But it is emotionally taxing because it's historical fiction and some of the topics are hard to read. And I I need to read them. I want to read them, but sometimes emotionally it's difficult. So I don't want to feel like because I have a year goal of 100 books that I have to plow through them. I feel like I want to set a goal for myself that is, yes, attainable, that, yes, challenges me and makes me feel great once I accomplish it, but also empowers me to have a very enjoyable experience. So these books are here on my desk, and this is only about 60 books. So how many? About 60. And then I have a whole nother set of books behind me that I can add to this list as well that I'm going to be considering. All right, so let's talk for a minute about how I choose books for my MVR throughout the year. As I already mentioned, I am a part of a few book clubs, and so those books automatically go on my TBR list of books that I want to read for the year, that I plan to read, and that kind of must be read. But here's the truth. There really isn't anything that absolutely has to be read. I put it on the list and I want it to be read. We'll see what happens. Then there are a few people that automatically, when they say that they like a book, I go check out a bit of the synopsis, or I just completely go according to what they say and see if it feels like a book that I would like, and then I add it to my TBR. One of those people is Dee Dee from Brown Girl Reading. I love her book recommendations, and so whenever she shares that she absolutely loves a book, I either go purchase the book or I put the book on my TBR or my MBR. And it's normally because I enjoy a lot of the books that she likes, but there are some that I'm like, I'm not quite sure that I'm going to enjoy that book. So I just add it to the list of possibles or things that I should consider, and then I check it out later. The other thing that I do is I go down a list of books that I've purchased that are sitting on my shelves and have not been read yet. Unlike some that feel like, when they buy a book, they absolutely must read it and they don't want any unread books on their shelves. I'm different. The goal for me is not to have a bunch of books on my shelves that I have read. It is instead to always have a library of books that I can go back to on a rainy day, a stormy day, or at a time when I just don't feel like going out. And I can pull from it and read something that I've never read before. I can go through a journey, and it's not a journey that I've been on. And while, yes, I do want to be able to reread books that I love and have books on my shelves that I've already read, I don't ever plan on reading all of my books. And so I am constantly adding to my shelves, whether they are digital shelves or my physical shelves. I'm always adding to them. One of the ways that I actually select books for me to read during the year is I search my shelves. I look at books that I've purchased and that I've wanted to read, and I just kind of start pulling them off. And so that's what happened here. I started pulling books off of my shelves. And then what I do is I go through and I read the first few lines of the synopsis. Now, some of them I already know what they are about because I got the summary from a YouTuber or they were recommended to me or something like that. Others, I have no idea what they're really about, and I don't read the entire synopsis because I'm also a person that doesn't want to watch the full trailer to a movie. I don't want to see the good parts. I don't want it to be spoiled for me. I just want to kind of know where we're going, and then I'll keep going with the book from there. I feel like part of the journey of reading is to go on the experience, to try to figure things out and to learn along the way if I was right or not. So what I do is once I have my stack of books, then I slowly go through them and I read a few lines of the synopsis and I decide if this is something that feels like I'm going to want to experience this for the next 12 months, within the next 12 months. And if I feel like it is something that I want to experience, then I add it to my MBR. If it's something that I feel like I need or deeply desire to experience, I add it to my TBR. And so um, that is how I select my books for my reading list. Now, how do I select them throughout the months? These books are actually going to go on a few shelves, and those shelves will be where I go to throughout the year in general to get a book. It doesn't mean that I won't go anywhere else in my library, but I go to these shelves to pull off books that I said, hey, this is what I wanted to read this year. And then I kind of open them up and I read a few pages of the first chapter or so. And I see, am I feeling like this book right now? If I am, then I go ahead and I read the book. If I'm not, I put it back and I leave it for another time and I come back to it later. Sometimes I even find myself reading more than one book at a time because I'm like, I don't know, this one feels good right now, this one feels good later. And then I'll close it, or the one of them will draw me in more and then I'll just keep on going. Either way, I really enjoy my experience because it's something that is completely mine. I get to go through my books and choose which journey I want to go on right here in my home, and I really, really love it. So let's talk about rereading books. This is the first year that I am actually thinking about rereading a few books that I've already read. And there are many reasons why. One reason is because I didn't write a review about them, or I didn't talk about them, or I didn't really share my views on the book. And so now that I want to share more about a particular book, I've literally forgotten the details, the specifics, right? I know what I know. I know how I felt, but I don't remember the details of the book. Another one is there are some books that I want to know if I still feel the way I felt when I read the book the first time. Is it still a book that I love? Will it still make me cry? Is it still something that I disagreed with deeply? Or has my mind completely changed? And so this is the first year that I'm like, maybe I should reread this book or that book. Maybe I should do a different review of this book or post it to my blog. Maybe I should read it with the book club and see what they think about it. It's the first year that I'm doing that. I don't normally reread a lot of books at all. And with me having an English degree and having to read through certain genres and works, sometimes I'm like, I've already read that. I've taken the notes on that. But what I am also learning is that when I was in college, I did not have to read through a lot of the text. It was more an excerpt or a section of the text, and it gave me a perspective of the writer and the writing and the time period, but I didn't really get to enjoy the work itself or experience the work itself. So now, where I am, I'm kind of like, I think I want to reread it. One of those books is The Scarlet Letter. I read it and I remember how I felt about it in both high school and college. And I think I want to reread it again to see what I think about it now. So that's something that I am thinking about doing this year when it comes to my bookish goals. Let's talk about another one of my bookish goals, which is reading the classics, kinda. So here's what I mean by classics, kinda. There is a canon of books that is considered to be the classics. And those classics are often taught in schools. They're less diverse and they focus on a specific group of people. Um, I was watching a video, and I'm going to do a longer version of this because I have to plan this out and think through it and everything. But I was watching a video and it was talking about creating your own canon and going on an experience of kind of developing a list of books that would be my canon, or I guess I could say a list of books that I would recommend to other people or say you must read these, right? What would I say? Or something similar about them, or even all the works of an author and then putting perspective to them. Which ones do I think are better? Which ones do I think were worse? Which ones, you know, should be read by everyone, or which ones did you stay away from? So, with that being said, while I want to read classics that I either had to read an excerpt from or need to return to or have never read, I am using classics loosely because I am also considering what it means for a book to be a classic and who is deeming that that book is a classic. And do I want to change what that means for me? And so I am inserting African American literature and writings of different people from different spaces and time. And I'm trying to see what I think and how I feel about this term classics. Let's talk about the romance genre. 5 years ago, I was solely a Christian fiction reader in general. I did read things because of my degree. I read things because I stumbled upon this or that. I had little things that I read, but I think about 5 years ago, I did not have as much fiction on my shelves that belonged to the romance, fantasy, mystery, and I did have some literary fiction, of course, but those genres were not on my shelves. I had Christian fiction, Christian romance, a lot of spiritual books and things like that, and literary fiction, and then all of my literary text, historical text, self help, and things like that. I'm saying that I changed as a reader about 5 years ago. And at that time, it was kind of hard for me because I felt like there were certain things I just didn't want to read. And I felt like there were certain things I didn't need to read either, but there were also certain things that I wanted to read. And so I slowly began to dip my feet into the water and to read different types of books, including the romance genre. And I found that I enjoyed the stories and I enjoyed the experience. It was very new, very different, right? However, here I am 5 years later, and I think maybe I'll do a whole video on this, maybe. You guys let me know what you think if you want to know more about my perspective on this. But 5 years later, as I read some of the very authors that I started reading when I got into this genre, I am now reading some of the books that they are publishing recently. And there are parts of me that are a bit disappointed and frustrated because there are things that I'm reading that I don't necessarily want to read anymore, but I enjoy the story. And there are things that I am reading that I wonder how much of it do I need for the story to be good. And so in the romance genre, I am finding that my tastes are changing again. I went from explorative to understanding how I feel about this genre a little bit. And now I am really becoming more selective about what I want to read. I was already a bit selective about what I wanted to read because there was just certain things I was like, I'm not reading that at all. But I am looking at what I am reading and saying, okay, I think that's enough. Yeah. I'll come back to this topic. I will. Last thing I think I want to talk about when it comes to selecting my books is I think that through being on social media, through being on TikTok, and connecting to different authors and things like that, and understanding their journey, I think I've been too close to some of the authors' journey and wanting them to succeed in order to really review the books the way that I should publicly. And I think it's doing a disservice to my audience and even to myself in a certain way because I don't really want to talk bad about a great author, a good author, someone who is doing a good job, or even an author that is no longer with us that everyone loves, but I didn't love it. I didn't love the book. I found that my desire to not publicly shame or make the author look bad or make the book look bad because of who wrote it or what has been said about it has not been good. So, in realizing and understanding this, I have decided to not follow the authors so closely or and some of this I'm still working on, but even to disconnect in a way from the author's story when I am talking about a particular book. Because for the way that I want to talk about books and have discussion on the topics that are brought up in books and the writing and even the writers, I don't think it is good for me to always consider, well, this person spent their time writing this book and this person is looked up to, and this is supposed to be one of the greats and things like that. It's doing a disservice. So I've thought about that in choosing the books that I've selected for this year. I've said, and I'm still selecting, but I need to finish very soon. I've thought about when I read these books, how will I provide my feedback? What will I say about my experience? And is this something that I want to critique in a way that I know may not get the sales, but at the same time, it's not my responsibility, right? I can't be so committed to an author that I'm not sharing that the book was okay. And even as I'm saying this, there's a particular book that comes to mind that I know what I wrote in my reading journal, but I'm wondering, did I share that? Or did I just choose to not review the book? Because it is a very well-loved book. But I also want to say that what this makes me think of sometimes is, am I missing something? Am I just not understanding what's happening? Did it just go completely over my head? Sometimes that's what I'm thinking when the book just falls flat or the author's writing is just not what everyone says that it is. But if that is a part of my experience and my journey, then I have to share that. So, yeah, these are some of the bookish things that I'm thinking as I am selecting my books for this year. Now you know my goal, my overall goal, or what I am thinking. I think really I'm more so going to be around 50 books, maybe 60, but I'm probably going to do 50. I read books, the physical copy of the book. I read the digital copy of a book. I listen to the audiobook. So doing all those things helps me sometimes to read more books than I would if I did not do those, because like during the day, I'll hold the physical copy of the book. In the evenings when I'm laying down, and I don't want the light on to wake my husband or anything, I'll have my Kindle. And sometimes when I'm cooking, cleaning, like that, I'll listen to or driving, I'll listen to the audiobook. And so it helps me to reach my goals quicker. And so for all I know, I could surpass this 50 or 60 book goal. But again, the purpose for me is to enjoy it. So yes, that is where I am with this topic or these topics. This is what I am thinking. This is my bookish thoughts. And I would like to invite you to become a Patreon supporter. And that means you become a part of my community. You get an invite to my Discord. You also get updates on all of the bookish things that I don't talk about here. You get regular updates. And you help to support my hobbyist journey of reading the books, knitting, quilting, crocheting, all the things, and sharing my experience and making these videos. So if you would like to become a Patreon supporter, then I'm going to post the link down below. I will also be sharing inside of the Patreon and the Discord the actual books that I plan on reading. On here, I will be sharing some of the books that I plan on reading, and you'll see a lot of them come across when I do reviews, but I'm going to leave the full list for my Patreon supporters. And I would also ask that when you come into the Discord that you share inside of the TBR section what you are reading and what your plans are. And also, I would like to invite you to become a part of the Bookish Palette Book Club. So this month, we are finishing up The Circle by Dave Eggers, I think is how you say his name. And we'll be having our meeting on February 1st, which is right around the corner, literally. And we'll be talking about it. There's a discussion portion for it, a discussion broadcast for it, and then members will be able to join the discussion and share their thoughts, opinions, and conclusions on the book. So that is it for now. If you enjoyed this, if you are not already a subscriber, go ahead and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye now.